I never imagined that at 62, I'd be driving around at 11 p.m. through streets I didn't even recognize, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, and my heart pounding like it wanted to jump right out of my chest. It all kicked off about 3 hours earlier when I drove past the corporate building where Khalil Vance had put in 25 years. The lights were off, the parking garage was deserted, and there was a notice on the front door saying the offices were closed for renovation starting at 6 p.m. that night. My first thought was that I had the wrong building. But nope, there was the company's fancy logo, mocking me from the dark front of the building. I dialed his number, my fingers already starting to tremble. "How's the project coming, honey?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, normal like the loyal wife I'd been for the past 40 years. His answer was instant, rehearsed, and perfectly deceptive. "Super busy here, Naomi Delaney. Can't talk right now. This Tokyo project has us all working overtime. Don't wait up for me, okay?" And then I heard it. Soft moans, muffled laughter. That unmistakable sound of intimacy that I thought I knew so well. My stomach turned, but my mind, the part that had been asleep for years, snapped awake with terrifying clarity. The family GPS app, which I'd insisted we install after Khalil had a minor car accident last year, suddenly became my guide to the truth. The blue dot showing his silver Mercedes-Benz S-Class was blinking in a fancy residential neighborhood about 40 minutes from our house, in a part of Atlanta we'd never been to together. Each mile I drove felt like I was peeling away layers of my own skin, revealing something raw and incredibly painful underneath. The neighborhood was gorgeous, almost too gorgeous. Craftsman-style houses with perfectly kept lawns, old-fashioned streetlights casting a golden glow on the sidewalks. The kind of place where happy families live their perfect lives. Khalil's Mercedes was parked in front of a deep cobalt blue two-story house with hydrangeas on the porch and a wooden swing. There was a light on upstairs, shadows moving behind lace curtains that looked like they came straight out of a decorating magazine. My pulse thundered as I sat in my car, breath shallow, palms slick with sweat, parked 3 houses down just watching. My mind was struggling to make sense of what I was seeing, like trying to fit puzzle pieces that didn't belong together. This wasn't the home of any colleague I knew. It wasn't a hotel, or some anonymous apartment for secret affairs. It was a home, complete with a mailbox painted with sunflowers and a welcome mat that read, "The Stanton Family." Then I saw her, a woman, not young as I'd feared, but in her mid-40s, peeking out the upstairs window. Her hair was pulled up in a messy bun, and she was wearing a blue silk robe that I recognized with a sharp stab of pain. It was the same as the one Khalil had given me for our last anniversary, except mine was wine red. The woman looked down the street with a satisfied expression that stung more than any passionate gesture could have. My phone buzzed violently, slicing through the eerie silence. A text from Khalil. "Leaving the office now, love. Don't wait up. Grab dinner without me." The lie was so obvious it was almost laughable. Almost. I checked my watch. 11:43 p.m. How many nights had I eaten alone, slept alone, lived alone, while he was building this whole other life? A boy appeared at the window next to the woman, about 10 years old, with dark, wavy hair, just like Khalil's, and the same way of tilting his head when something interested him. The woman hugged him, and they both disappeared from my view, probably heading to bed, continuing their nightly routine in their perfect home with my husband. My husband, the words just lost all meaning in that moment, floating around in my mind like strange, unfamiliar objects. 40 years of marriage, 2 grown kids, 3 grandkids, an entire life built on what exactly? Lies, half-truths, a masterful performance. Then the physical pain hit so intense I thought I was having a heart attack. I woke up in my car at 5:47 a.m. with a stiff neck and swollen eyes. The blue house was still there. Proof that it wasn't just a bad dream. Khalil's Mercedes was gone. I drove home on autopilot, every traffic light and turn etched into my muscle memory after living in the same place for decades. I got there just as Khalil was walking through the front door, briefcase in one hand and a box of donuts in the other. My favorite treat. "Morning, honey," he said, kissing me on the cheek with his usual casual familiarity. "I brought your favorites, the Boston creams. I know I shouldn't have worked all night, But you know how these international projects are. His performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen what I saw, if I didn't know what I knew, I would have believed every word. I wondered how many years he'd been perfecting this act, how many mornings he'd walked through that door with lies wrapped up in bakery paper. How thoughtful, I replied, surprised at how normal my voice sounded. Why don't you take a shower while I make the coffee? He nodded, humming that tune he always whistled when he was in a good mood, the same melody I'd listened to for 40 years, never knowing it meant he'd spent the night with another family. While the shower was running, I checked his briefcase. I had mastered the art of being the discreet wife, or so I thought. I found the usual work documents that looked real enough, a tablet, company pens, but there was something new too. A second phone, one I'd never seen before, hidden in a compartment I didn't even know existed. The screen showed several missed calls from home, and a text. Daddy, don't forget my soccer game Saturday. Mommy says you promised to come. Love you, Jalen. Another woman called Mommy, by another son of Khalil's. The picture suddenly got a whole lot bigger, and I started seeing everything clearly. The frequent business trips, always 3 or 4 days long. The weekends he had to work. The calls he'd answer out in the yard, away from me. The credit card purchases that never made it home. I had been so naive, so trusting, so blind. But no, I corrected myself. I hadn't been stupid. I had been a wife who trusted her husband. I had chosen to believe. I had chosen not to see because the alternative was unimaginable. Now I remembered specific moments with painful clarity. Like that time 15 years ago when I found a jeweler's receipt in his pocket. It's for my boss's secretary's birthday, he'd said. You know how he is. He always makes me do his personal shopping. And I had believed him. Or 10 years ago when our daughter Geneva told me she'd seen Dad at the fancy shopping mall with a woman and a young child. Must be a colleague's sister, I'd replied, dismissing it. Dad's always helping people. Geneva was 15 then. The boy in the window last night would be about 10 years old. The math was cruel in its precision. I heard Khalil turn off the shower. I put everything back where it belonged, every item exactly as I had found it. I'd learned a lot about deception in the last few hours. When he came out of the bathroom, his hair damp and smelling of the cologne I faithfully bought him every Christmas, I had the coffee poured and the donuts on a plate. Sleep well? He asked, biting into a donut while reading the news on his iPad. Like always, I lied, finding that the false words came easier than I'd expected. And did you get any rest at the office? Slept a couple of hours on the sofa in the conference room, he replied without looking up. Daryl was snoring like a bear in the next office. Daryl. I remembered that Daryl, his supposed partner on those late-night projects, had retired 6 months ago. We'd even had a dinner to celebrate, where Khalil gave a touching speech about teamwork and loyalty. The irony made me want to throw up. Naomi Delaney, are you okay? You look pale, Khalil said, touching my forehead with concern that seemed real. I waited 3 days before going back. 3 days where I perfected my own performance, smiling at the right moments, responding to his lies with the expected gullibility, even making love to him one night while imagining the other woman in my place. Khalil didn't suspect a thing. After all, I'd been predictable for 40 years. Naomi Delaney, the devoted wife. Naomi Delaney, the perfect mother. Naomi Delaney, the fool. This time I was prepared. I wore clothes I wouldn't usually wear. Jeans and a hooded sweatshirt I'd paid for in cash, big sunglasses, my hair tucked under a baseball cap. I looked like someone else. And maybe I was. The old Naomi Delaney had died in that car 3 nights ago. I got to the Blue House at 2 p.m., when Khalil was definitely at his office. The real one this time. I checked by calling his direct line. The neighborhood was quiet, just the occasional sound of a dog barking or a landscaper working. I parked on the same street but closer this time. I needed to see. I needed to understand. The woman Araya came out at 2:30. My heart almost stopped, not because of her, but because of what she was carrying. A baby in a front carrier, a baby who couldn't have been more than 6 months old. The math of betrayal suddenly got a whole lot more complicated. It wasn't just the 10-year-old boy. So Khalil had been building this other family for how long? I followed her on foot when she started walking through the neighborhood, keeping a careful distance and pretending to look at my phone when she stopped. I watched her go into a trendy coffee shop, one of those cozy places with tables outside and plants hanging everywhere. I sat at a table far away, ordering a coffee I had no intention of drinking. She met two other women, both with babies. I listened to them talk about everyday things. Diapers, sleepless nights, the exhaustion of motherhood. And then one of them said something that sent a chill down my spine. Araya, you are so lucky Khalil is so involved. Not all husbands are that dedicated. My Khalil was Khalil in this life. Araya laughed, adjusting the baby in her arms. Yes, although with his work schedule it's complicated. He sometimes has to travel for business for 3 or 4 days, but he always makes up for it when he gets back. He's a wonderful father. The business trips, those 3 or 4 days were when he came back to me, to his other life, to his other adult children. We were just shifts on his elaborate schedule of lies. I wondered if he had a spreadsheet somewhere, coordinating his lies and making sure he didn't mix up names, dates, or stories. And how is Jalan doing with the new baby? Another woman asked. Jealous at first, Araya replied. But Khalil, my husband, has been amazing at managing the situation. He bought him a new baseball glove, and they spend Saturday afternoons together while I rest with the baby. Saturday afternoons, the Saturday work seminars that Khalil never missed. Another puzzle piece clicking into place with sickening accuracy. I got up to leave, but then Araya pulled out her phone to show photos. I couldn't help but glance as I walked past her table. There was Khalil, my Khalil, in a family photo on a beach in Turks and Caicos, tanned, smiling, carrying the boy on his shoulders, while Araya, pregnant in the photo, smiled beside him. I recognized the resort. It was the same one where Khalil had had a crucial corporate retreat the year before. I stumbled out of the coffee shop. On the way back to my car, I passed a park where several children were playing. I stopped dead when I heard a familiar voice. That's it, champ. Kick harder. It was Khalil. My Khalil, who was supposed to be in a meeting with Japanese investors, coaching a youth soccer team. Tariq, the boy from the window, ran toward him with a smile that was a mirror image of his father's. I watched him for 20 minutes. This man I thought I knew better than myself. I saw him being the father he had been with our children when they were small, but with an energy, a presence that was painfully familiar, yet strangely alien at the same time. This wasn't an act. It was genuine. It was a father loving his son, a man in his element. Who was the real Khalil then? The man who ate breakfast with me every morning? Or the one who coached soccer on Wednesday afternoons? The one who made love to me on Sunday mornings? Or the one who took another family to the beach? Did a real Khalil even exist? Or were there just carefully crafted versions for each audience? My phone rang. It was him. Hey honey. Meeting finished early. Want me to pick up something for dinner? I looked across the park, where he was still shouting instructions to the team. That would be perfect, darling. Bring some wine, that Napa Valley Cabernet we like. I know the one. I love you, Naomi Delaney. I love you too, I replied, the words turning to ash in my mouth. That night, as Khalil slept peacefully beside me, his breathing quiet like someone without a guilty conscience, I got up and went to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time, studying every line, every mark that time had left on my face. 62 years old. 40 of them devoted to a man who had built a double life with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. The tears finally came, silent at first, then racking sobs that I had to muffle with a towel so I wouldn't wake him. I wasn't just crying for the betrayal. I was crying for the woman in the mirror. Who was I without him? Who had Naomi Delaney been before she became Mrs. Khalil Vance? The memories of my youth seemed to belong to someone else. The girl who wanted to be a painter, who had won a scholarship to study in Paris, who had turned it down because Khalil had convinced her that starting a family was more important. The art will always be there, he'd said then, with that smile that melted my defenses. But the time for children won't. And I had believed him. I had packed away my brushes, traded canvases for diapers, and galleries for parent-teacher conferences. I didn't regret my children. Geneva and Malik were the best things in my life. But what had become of Naomi Delaney, the artist? She had completely disappeared into Naomi Delaney, the wife. The next day, while Khalil was at his real office or perhaps his parallel life, I couldn't be sure anymore. I went up to the attic. There, in dust-covered boxes, I found my old art supplies. The brushes were stiff, the paints dry, but the sketches were still there. A reminder of a talent I had abandoned for love. Or what I had thought was love. I also found letters, photographs, and memories of our life together. Our wedding, with Khalil promising before God and 200 guests that he would be faithful until death. Geneva's birth, with Khalil crying as he cut the umbilical cord. Malik taking his first steps, with Khalil filming it with that old camera he loved so much. Real moments. Genuine emotions. Or so I had believed. When had the lie begun? My phone rang. It was Geneva. Mom, are you okay? You've been acting weird lately. My daughter, always so perceptive. I'm fine, honey. Just a little tired. Are you sure? I can stop by if you want. The kids are asking for Grandma. The kids? My grandchildren? Khalil's official grandchildren. I wondered if they knew they had an uncle and a little aunt in that blue house. Siblings they would never meet. The web of lies spread like a poisonous vine, touching innocent lives. Sunday is better, I replied. Dad will be home. A lie. On Sunday afternoons, Khalil played golf with clients. Now I knew it was likely family time at the Blue House. After hanging up, I went back to my investigation. The bank statements I had ignored for years now made sense. Regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize, purchases at stores we never went to, medical expenses that didn't match any of our illnesses. Khalil had been supporting 2 homes, 2 complete lives, and I had been too trusting, too comfortable in my ignorance to notice. I found invoices for private school tuition, music lessons, and summer camps. Tariq played the violin. The baby, whose name I still didn't know, had been born at Emory University Hospital, the same one where our children were born. The audacity of the deception was almost impressive in its brazenness. That afternoon I did something I had never done before. I hired a private investigator, a discreet man recommended by a friend who had gone through a messy divorce. I need to know everything, I told him. How long? How did it start? Everything. Are you sure you want to know everything? He asked, his voice heavy with the experience of shattering lives with the truth. Yes, I replied, although I wasn't sure of anything except that I couldn't keep living in this charade. Khalil came home that night with flowers, calla lilies, my favorite, or the favorites of the Naomi Delaney he thought I was. I no longer knew what I genuinely liked, what preferences were mine, and which ones I had adopted to please him. You look beautiful, he said during dinner, taking my hand. The private investigator, a man named Agent Brooks with tired eyes that had seen too many secrets, came to the house a week later. Khalil was on one of his business trips, that is, playing Happy Family in the Blue House. Agent Brooks placed a folder on my dining room table. The same table where we had celebrated 40 Christmases, 40 birthdays, a lifetime of lies. Mrs. Vance, what I'm about to show you isn't easy to take, he warned, his voice professionally compassionate. Are you sure you want to continue? I nodded, my hands shaking as I opened the folder. The first page was a marriage certificate. Khalil Stanton had married Araya Stanton 12 years ago. Marriage, not an affair, not a mistress but another wife. But this is illegal, I stammered, my mind struggling to process the information. Technically, yes, Agent Brooks replied. He used false documents, an alternate identity he's maintained perfectly for years. Khalil Vance and Khalil Stanton are the same person, but legally they exist as 2 different individuals. It's a professional job, ma'am. Your husband is no amateur at this. The following pages were worse. Photographs of Khalil and Araya's wedding, an intimate ceremony on a beach, her in a simple white linen dress, him with that smile I thought I knew so well. Birth certificates, Tariq Stanton, born 11 years ago, 3 months after Khalil had an emergency medical conference in San Diego. Nyla Stanton, the baby born 7 months ago when Khalil was on a corporate leadership retreat. There's more, Agent Brooks said, moving to another section. Your husband owns properties under his alternate identity. The house where the other family lives, a condo in Miami, a cabin in the Smoky Mountains, all paid for in cash, with no suspicious mortgages. My inheritance, my mother's inheritance, which she had left me 15 years ago, a considerable sum that Khalil had wisely invested for our retirement. Now I knew where that money had really gone. He had funded his other life with my dead mother's money. How is this possible? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. How can someone live like this for so long? Agent Brooks shrugged. I've seen similar cases, though none so elaborate. Your husband manages 2 businesses, one under each name. The second is a consulting firm that justifies his extra income in absences. It's brilliant in a twisted way. I kept reading school records for Tariq, an excellent student, captain of the youth soccer team. Medical reports for Araya, fertility treatments Khalil had paid for years before she could conceive. They had struggled to have children just like us at first. The irony was sickening. There's one more thing you should know, Agent Brooks said, clearly uncomfortable. The other woman, Araya, she doesn't know about you. To her, her husband is a widower. The story he told her is that his first wife, Naomi Delaney, died in a car accident 15 years ago. I was dead. In Khalil's narrative for his other family, I was dead. He had metaphorically killed off his wife so he could have another. I wondered if he ever thought about the dead wife sleeping in another house, in another life, while he made love to Araya. Is there anything about why? I asked, needing to understand the motivation behind such a complex deception. Agent Brooks pulled out another file. I discreetly interviewed some acquaintances from both circles. Apparently, your husband met Araya when she was his physical therapist after his knee surgery. The knee surgery? I remembered those months perfectly. Khalil complaining of pain, going to therapy 3 times a week, slowly recovering. I had been busy caring for my sick mother then, trusting him to follow his treatment plan. He had planted the seeds of his other life while I held my dying mother's hand. Araya became pregnant shortly after. Agent Brooks continued. Based on the dates, it seems your husband decided to maintain both lives instead of choosing. Maybe because of the children, maybe because of the finances, maybe because he could. The financial documents suggested he controlled nearly $3 million in assets between both identities. $3 million. Money I had inherited, earned, perhaps even been stolen from, to maintain his empire of lies. I stood up abruptly, running to the bathroom where I vomited until there was nothing left but bile. Agent Brooks waited patiently, professionally, until I was finished. What do you want to do with this information? He asked when I returned. I need time to think. Can you get me more information about his finances? Everything. Every account, every investment, every single transaction. Of course. Are you considering a divorce? I'm considering justice, I replied, surprised by the coldness in my voice. I spent the next 3 days in a hotel, telling Khalil I was visiting my sister in Chicago. I needed space to think, to plan, to decide who Naomi Delaney would be after this. In the solitude of that impersonal room, with Agent Brooks's folders spread across the bed like evidence from a crime scene, I made the decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to cry silently while Khalil continued his double life. I wasn't going to disappear quietly with a silent divorce that allowed him to keep his facade intact. I was going to systematically dismantle the house of cards he had built, but I would do it with the precision of a surgeon, not the fury of a scorned wife. First, I needed allies. I called Malik, my son, who was a corporate law attorney. Son, I need your professional help with something delicate. Can you come to the Marriott Marquis downtown, room 512? Malik arrived within the hour, looking worried. Mom, what's wrong? Why are you in a hotel? I showed him everything. I watched his face shift from confusion to disbelief, then to a cold rage that mirrored my own. I'm going to destroy him, he finally said, his voice lethal. Bigamy is a felony, fraud, tax evasion. Document forgery. I didn't interrupt. I don't want him to go to jail. I want something worse. I want him to lose everything he values but have to live to see it. Malik looked at me with new admiration. What do you have in mind? I laid out my plan. It was complex, requiring patience, acting, and a degree of cruelty I didn't know I possessed. Malik listened, occasionally suggesting improvements, legal refinements that would make everything airtight. We'll need Geneva too, he said. She handles public relations for that big firm. She'll know how to manage the media aspect when everything explodes. Geneva reacted differently. She cried for a solid hour, then became enraged, then cried again. How could he? She repeated. How could he do this to us? But when she finally calmed down, her strategic mind took over. We need to control the narrative. When this comes out, and it will come out, we need Dad to be the undisputed villain. I also needed an unexpected ally. I called Khalil's sister, Hattie, with whom I had always had a good relationship. Hattie listened in complete silence as I told her everything. Then she sighed deeply. I always knew something wasn't right, she admitted. The trips, the excuses, the way he sometimes got details confused. I thought it was an affair. I never imagined this. I need access to your mother's safe deposit box, I told her. Hattie was the executor of my mother-in-law's will. Khalil keeps important documents there. Naomi Delaney, Hattie said after a pause. Mom always loved you more than him. She used to say you were too good for Khalil. You'll have what you need. The plan took shape over the next few weeks. I hired a second investigator, this one specializing in financial fraud. He discovered that Khalil had been systematically evading taxes, using his double identity to conceal income. A forensic accountant traced every transaction, building a case that would make the IRS tremble. Malik prepared legal documents, not for an immediate divorce, but to freeze assets at the precise moment. Geneva cultivated contacts in the media, preparing them for the story of the year. Prominent businessman living double life for a decade. I returned home to my role as the devoted wife. Khalil suspected nothing. Why would he? He had maintained his deception for so long that arrogance had made him careless. He kissed me every morning, called me from his office every afternoon, and we made love with an enthusiasm from me that surprised him pleasantly. One night, while we were having dinner, he spoke to me about the future. I've been thinking about retirement, he said. Maybe in a few years we could travel, see the world like we always wanted. That sounds wonderful, I replied, pouring him more wine. Where would you go first? Italy maybe. Or Greece. Places with history, with art. I know how much you love art. The art I gave up for you, I thought, smiling. It would be perfect. He continued talking about his dreams, our supposed plans together, unaware that I was counting the days until his destruction. The next 6 weeks were a masterpiece of performance. I became the most perfect wife Khalil had had in years. I cooked his favorite dishes. I waited up for him no matter how late he worked. I initiated sex with an enthusiasm that delighted him. I was the Naomi Delaney of our honeymoon, but with a dark purpose he couldn't imagine. You're radiant lately, he told me one morning, hugging me from behind while I made coffee. What's changed? I decided to value what we have, I replied, my voice poisoned. Honey, life is short, don't you think? Meanwhile, the pieces of the plan moved like clockwork. Malik discovered that Khalil's consulting firm, as Khalil Stanton, had won several government contracts using insider information obtained from his identity as Khalil Vance. It was corporate fraud on a grand scale. Geneva had planted seeds on social media. Anonymous accounts that began asking questions about the mysterious Khalil Stanton and his resemblance to Khalil Vance. Nothing accusatory yet, just enough to create buzz. The financial investigator found the grand prize, a Cayman Islands account with $5 million. Money Khalil had been diverting for years. It was our money, money from my mother's inheritance, money from joint investments, all hidden for his eventual escape, perhaps. But the masterstroke came from Hattie. In her mother's safe deposit box, she found the real will of my father-in-law, not the version Khalil had submitted. In the original, everything was left in a trust for the grandchildren, with Naomi Delaney as the administrator. Khalil had forged documents to inherit everything alone. Another federal crime. One afternoon, I followed Khalil to the Blue House. This time I didn't hide. I parked right out front and waited. I watched him get out of the car, but not like the Khalil I knew. This man walked differently, more relaxed, somehow younger. Jalan ran into his arms and Khalil lifted him, spinning him in the air while the boy laughed. Araya came out with the baby, and the scene was so domestic, so perfect that I finally understood. Khalil wasn't acting there. That was his real life. I was the obligation, the youthful mistake he couldn't correct. This family was what he truly wanted. The knowledge didn't hurt as much as I expected. Instead, it gave me clarity. I wasn't destroying a marriage. I was exposing a lie. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. That night, Khalil came home late, smelling of baby powder and with a smudge of marinara sauce on his sleeve, probably from dinner with his other family. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing me distractedly. "The meeting ran long." "No problem," I replied, noticing the child's drawing sticking out of his briefcase. "Did you eat?" "Grab something at the office," he lied easily. "But I'd love a glass of wine with you." We sat on the sofa, him talking about his fictional day, while I nodded at the appropriate moments. At one point he rested his head in my lap, an intimate gesture from our early years. "Are you happy, Naomi Delaney?" he asked suddenly. The question caught me by surprise. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I've lost something, that I took a wrong turn somewhere, and I can't find my way back." It was the most honest he had been in years, and for a moment I almost felt pity for him. Almost. "We all make choices," I replied, stroking his hair. "The important thing is living with the consequences." "I guess you're right," he sighed, closing his eyes. Malik called me the next day. "Everything's ready. The documents are prepared. Geneva's contacts are waiting. The IRS has been anonymously notified. We're just waiting for your signal." Friday, I decided. During the anniversary dinner. Our 40th anniversary was in 2 weeks. Khalil had reserved the most exclusive restaurant in the city. He had invited our closest friends and family. It would be public. It would be devastating. It would be perfect. "Are you sure?" Malik asked. "Once we start, there's no going back." I thought of Araya, unaware her husband was a bigamist, of Jalan and little Layla, who would lose the father they knew. They were victims too, but I couldn't save them without destroying myself. "I'm sure," I confirmed. 40 years of lies, and on Friday, the restaurant, the Gilded Lyre, shimmered like a jewel in the city night. Khalil had reserved the entire main hall, an extravagant gesture even for him. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over Egyptian linen tablecloths. Each table was adorned with white orchids and red roses, the colors of my wedding bouquet 40 years ago. A string quartet played Our Love Is Here to Stay, the song from our first dance. Every detail had been meticulously planned, a public masterpiece of romance that concealed private rot. I wore the blood-red dress I had bought specifically for this night, a daring design that hugged my figure with a neckline Khalil would have considered inappropriate just a few months ago. My hair was styled in an elegant updo that revealed the diamond necklace my mother had left me, the one Khalil didn't know I had retrieved from the safe deposit box. The makeup was dramatic. Red lipstick, smoky eyes, a mask of war disguised as glamour. Every guest who arrived commented on how radiant I looked, never suspecting that my glow was that of a freshly sharpened blade. Khalil wore his Italian tailor-made navy blue suit, the one he wore for the most important occasions, the silk tie I had given him for our 30th anniversary. His gold cufflinks, his father's inheritance, sparkled when he moved his hands to greet guests. He had gone to the barber that afternoon, his silver hair perfectly trimmed, his beard neatly sculpted. He looked exactly what he pretended to be. A successful man celebrating a life of love and fidelity. "You are absolutely spectacular," he whispered, helping me with my chair at the head table. His hand brushed my bare shoulder, An intimate gesture for the public. I can't believe you still take my breath away after all these years. You are the most beautiful woman in the room. And you the biggest liar, I thought, but my smile was perfect, trained over weeks of practice in front of the mirror. You're not so bad yourself, my love, I replied, the term of endearment burning my tongue like acid. The 50 guests were a careful selection from our life. Khalil's business partners who needed to witness his downfall, society friends who would spread the scandal like wildfire, and family who deserved to know the truth. They were strategically placed, Malik and his wife, Elena, near the improvised stage, ready to intervene, Geneva and her fiancé, David, at a table with a perfect view of the projection screen, Hattie strategically located near the exit in case Khalil tried to run. Dinner began with oysters, which Khalil detested but had ordered because he knew they were my favorite. Another public gesture of devotion. Conversations flowed with the French champagne Dom Perignon from the year of our wedding, a detail that had cost a fortune and which Khalil had boasted about at least 3 times. Khalil has always been the perfect husband, commented Brenda Jenkins, the wife of Khalil's main partner, as she savored her lobster. Naomi Delaney, you are so fortunate. You have no idea, I replied, my smile unwavering. Khalil, sitting next to me, squeezed my hand under the table, a gesture others interpreted as love, but which I recognized as ownership. At 9:30, as the Belgian chocolate desserts were served, Khalil stood up, gently tapping his glass with a knife. The quartet stopped playing. Conversation ceased, and all eyes turned to him. Dear friends, family, he began, his voice rich and deep, the voice he had used to seduce me 4 decades ago. 40 years ago, in a small bookstore downtown, I met a woman who would change my life. Naomi Delaney became not only my wife, but my best friend, my confidant, my partner in every adventure. I watched as some women discreetly dabbed tears. Brenda sighed romantically. The men nodded approvingly. It was a masterful performance. These years haven't always been easy, Khalil continued, his voice trembling with feigned, or perhaps perversely real emotion. We've faced loss, challenges, moments of doubt. But Naomi Delaney, my Naomi Delaney, has been my anchor, my safe harbor in every storm, the light that guides me home every night. The irony was so bitter that I had to take a sip of water to avoid choking. Every night he was supposedly guided home, he chose another direction, another home, another woman. That's why Khalil pulled a blue velvet box from his pocket. I want to renew my vows right here in front of all of you. He opened the box, revealing an eternity diamond band. Naomi Delaney, will you do me the honor of continuing to be my wife for another 40 years? Applause erupted. Someone shouted, "Bravo!" Phone cameras flashed. It was the perfect moment, the romantic climax of the evening. I rose slowly, the air electric around me, eyes blazing with fury and heartbreak intertwined, accepting his kiss before the ovation, the ring heavy and cold on my finger. My turn, I announced as the applause died down, my voice clear as the crystal I was about to shatter. 40 years is a long time enough to know every secret, every truth, every lie about a person, or so one would think. Khalil smiled, his hand still on my waist, utterly oblivious to the chasm opening beneath his feet. I've prepared something very special for tonight, I continued, pulling my phone from my purse. Malik had already connected the restaurant's audio and projection system to my device, an arrangement that had cost a generous tip to the technical staff, a gift not just for my husband but for all of you, because Ruby anniversaries, dear friends, require absolute transparency like the purest crystal. I pressed play. Khalil's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. Araya, my love, I'm heading home now. Yeah, I know Jalen has his game tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Don't worry. I told Naomi Delaney I have a conference all weekend. She never suspects a thing. Trust me, after so many years she's blindly trusting. It's almost pathetic how easy it is. The silence that followed was absolute, the kind of silence that precedes an explosion. Khalil's champagne glass fell from his hand, shattering against the marble floor into 1,000 pieces that reflected the light like crystal tears. That's not. He started, his face going from tan to white to gray in seconds. "Oh, but wait," I interrupted, my voice now sharp as the broken glass at his feet. "There's so much more." The screen came to life with the photographs I had meticulously prepared. Khalil and Araya at their beach wedding, him in a white linen suit I had never seen, the birth certificate for Tariq Vance with Khalil Stanton listed as the father, Christmas family photos from the last 10 years, Khalil smiling with his other family in front of a tree I had never decorated, Nyla's ultrasound with a dedication to the best dad in the world. "Love, Araya." Gasps started like waves, each revelation provoking a new round of shock. Brenda Jenkins had gone pale, her hand covering her mouth. Khalil's partner, Devin Harris, stared at the images with a mixture of horror and fury, probably calculating the damage to the firm's reputation. Hattie buried her face in her hands, sobbing silently. 40 years, I said, walking slowly around Khalil, who remained frozen like a statue. 40 years living with a bigamist, a pathological liar, a criminal. Yes, dear friends, a criminal. Bigamy is a felony punishable by prison time. "Naomi Delaney, please." Khalil finally found his voice, stepping toward me with outstretched hands. "We can talk about this privately." "Don't do this." Malik stood up, interposing himself between his father and me. "Don't come near my mother." His voice was lethal, controlled. "And before you consider running, you should know that the IRS already has copies of all your financial statements, including that Cayman Islands account where you hid $5 million. The prosecutor has the fraudulent contracts you signed using your fake identity." Geneva took the microphone the quartet had abandoned. "To our dear guests, I deeply regret that you are witnessing this, but after 40 years of public deception, we felt the truth also needed to be public. My father not only betrayed my mother, he betrayed us all. This is insane." Khalil spun around, looking for support among the guests, but they were all backing away as if he were contagious. "Devin, you've known me for 20 years. You know I wouldn't." "Wouldn't what?" Devin, his best friend, stood up, his face a mask of disgust. "That you aren't capable of this? Apparently I didn't know you at all." I pulled the envelope from my purse, the divorce papers Malik had prepared. "You have two choices, Khalil. Sign these documents now, relinquishing all claims to our communal assets, or this goes to a public trial and you end up in federal prison for bigamy, tax fraud, and document forgery." Hattie stood up then, her voice trembling but firm. "Khalil, you should also know that I found Dad's real will. The one you forged is with the authorities. Mom always knew something wasn't right with you. It was the final blow." Khalil slumped into the chair, the powerful man reduced to rubble. With trembling hands he took the pen I offered him. As he signed, tears fell onto the documents, staining his name, his final surrender. The events following the anniversary dinner unfolded like perfectly aligned dominoes, each one toppling the next with devastating precision. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the balcony of the hotel suite where I had taken refuge, watching the city lights flicker while my phone vibrated incessantly with calls and messages I wouldn't answer. The red dress still clung to my body like battle armor, the smeared makeup tracing maps of pain on my face. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Malik arrived with coffee and his laptop. "The divorce papers are processed. Dad signed them last night. We have witnesses. It's irrevocable. We also froze the joint accounts an hour ago." His efficiency was ruthless, the lawyer taking control where the son might have faltered. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Geneva arrived with her crisis public relations team, 3 young women with tablets and determined expressions who transformed my suite into a command center. "The press embargo lifts in 2 hours, Geneva announced, her professionalism barely hiding the fury burning underneath. "We have exclusives with 3 major newspapers and 2 national television channels. The hashtag is already trending." By noon, the entire country knew who Khalil Vance really was. At exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, the story exploded. Prominent businessman living double life, bigamy, fraud, and 12 years of deception. Headlines screamed from every screen. The bigamist of the year became a worldwide trend in minutes. The photos I had provided Khalil with both families went viral. Cruel but creative memes flourished like mushrooms after the rain. The hotel phone rang. It was the front desk. "Mrs. Vance, there are reporters in the lobby requesting statements. Tell them my lawyer will give a press conference at 2 o'clock in the afternoon," I replied, my voice surprisingly firm. By 11 o'clock in the morning, Khalil's company had issued a statement. Effective immediately, Khalil Vance has been suspended from all duties pending an internal investigation into severe ethical violations and possible corporate fraud. Devin Harris, his partner, was more direct in his interview. "We are fully cooperating with the authorities. If the allegations are true, Khalil Vance not only betrayed his family, but also the trust of his partners, employees, and clients." At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang from an unknown number. It was Araya. Her voice sounded like shattered glass, every word fragmented and cutting. "Is it true?" she asked without preamble. "You are Naomi Delaney Vance, his first and only legal wife," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "No cruelty but no comfort." "I never died, Araya. He killed me metaphorically so he could have you. I'm sorry. You are a victim in this too." "The children." Her voice broke into a sob. "My God, the children. Jalin adored his father. The baby. What do I tell them? How do I explain that their entire life is a lie?" "I don't know," I admitted, because there were no words of comfort that could heal those wounds. "But children are resilient. With help, with therapy, with real love, they will heal." "Did you know about us?" she asked. "How long did you know?" 2 months, I answered. 2 months of truth after 40 years of lies. "I'm going to lose everything," she whispered. "The house is in his name. The accounts, everything. I have nothing of my own. I quit my job when Jalin was born because he insisted." It was another level of Khalil's cruelty, keeping Araya completely dependent. "Give me your information," I heard myself say. "My lawyer will contact you. You are not responsible for Khalil's crimes. We will make sure you and the children are financially protected." "Why?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Why would you help me?" "Because destroying Khalil doesn't mean destroying 2 innocent children," I replied. "They didn't ask to be born into a lie." The next day, the IRS arrived like a biblical plague. Federal agents appeared at Khalil's office, our house, and the Blue House. Boxes of documents were seized, computers, hard drives. Even his collection of luxury watches was cataloged and embargoed. The investigation revealed a labyrinth of tax evasion dating back 15 years. Offshore accounts, shell companies, fake invoices, a scheme so elaborate that it required a team of 20 forensic accountants to completely unravel it. Malik handled the legal aspect with a surgeon's precision and an executioner's coldness. Using the state's bigamy laws, which included the automatic nullification of any financial claim by the bigamous spouse, he voided all of Khalil's rights to our joint properties. The house, valued at $2 million, the 3 investment properties, the stock portfolio. Everything passed exclusively into my name. "We also recovered this," Malik said a week later, handing me a check for $3.7 million from the Cayman Islands account. "The rest is so tangled up in his shell companies that it will take years to recover, if at all." Hattie visited me that afternoon. She had aged 10 years in a week, her face marked by family shame. "Mom always knew something was wrong with Khalil," she confessed, sitting heavily on my hotel sofa. "Before she died, she told me, 'Take care of Naomi Delaney when the truth comes out.' I think she somehow knew." "How is he?" I asked, hating myself for caring. "Destroyed," Hattie replied bluntly. "Araya threw him out of the house. No hotel in the city will accept his reservation. His face is on all the news. He's living in an extended stay America on the highway, paying in cash with what little they haven't frozen. He tried to contact some friends but they all hung up. He's a pariah, Naomi Delaney, a man without a country." 3 weeks after the scandal, I was called to testify before the grand jury. The room was packed, every seat taken by people eager to hear the story firsthand. I wore a simple black suit, no jewelry except for my original wedding ring, which I wore as a reminder of the woman I used to be. For 4 hours I recounted everything. Every lie, every discovery, every piece of evidence. The jurors listened with expressions ranging from sympathy to horror. The prosecutor, a young but brilliant man named Darius Mitchell, was meticulous. Mrs. Vance, at any point during these 12 years did you suspect your husband's infidelity? There were moments, I admitted. Small inconsistencies, strange absences. But Khalil was a master manipulator. Every time I got close to the truth, he created an explanation so elaborate, so credible, that I felt guilty for doubting. And what made you discover the truth? I drew in a trembling breath before answering, my voice carrying the weight of every broken promise. At first, denial. Then pain, a pain so deep I thought it would break me in two. After that came anger, not hot but cold, calculated, and finally determination. Determination that 40 years of lies would not define the rest of my life. The grand jury's verdict was unanimous. Formal indictment for bigamy, tax fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Khalil faced up to 20 years in prison. A month later, Khalil called me from the county jail. He was awaiting trial there. His voice was almost beyond recognition, broken, aged, completely different from what I remembered. Why, Naomi Delaney? Why didn't you give me a chance to explain in private? Explain what, Khalil? How you accidentally stumbled into another life for 12 years. How you mistakenly married another woman. How you unintentionally had 2 more children. It wasn't like that. Araya got pregnant. I couldn't abandon her. But you could abandon me every day. For 12 years you abandoned me. I loved you, Naomi Delaney. I always loved you. No, I replied with a clarity that surprised even me. You loved the idea of me, the perfect wife in your perfectly compartmentalized life. But you never loved the real me. Naomi Delaney. The woman with her own dreams and desires. You turned me into a character in your elaborate fiction. The children. His voice broke. My other kids. What will happen to them? Araya and I have reached an agreement. They will receive financial support from the recovered assets. They will not suffer economically for your crimes. You and Araya are talking. The victims of the same criminal sometimes find comfort in mutual understanding, I replied. Naomi Delaney, please. I just want. No, Khalil. You don't have the right to want anything from me. You had 40 years of my life. You won't have another second. I hung up. It was the last time I would ever hear his voice. 2 years have passed since that anniversary dinner that changed everything. This morning, as I made coffee in my new condo kitchen overlooking the Atlanta rooftops, with the sun streaming through windows I chose all by myself, I received a notification on my phone. Khalil had been released on good behavior. I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, not even curiosity. The man who had been my husband was a stranger now, a character in a story that happened to another Naomi Delaney, one who no longer existed. My art exhibition opened last month, Portraits of an Invented Life. Each piece told a part of the story. The blind wife, the woman awakening, the architect of her own liberation. The reviews were extraordinary, but more importantly, every brushstroke had been therapy. Every color a small victory over the past. At the opening, a man approached me. He was a widower, a retired literature professor with kind eyes and a genuine laugh. Your work moves me, he said. There is so much pain but so much hope too. We had coffee afterward, then dinner. There is no rush, no expectations, just 2 people who understand that life can begin again at any age. Malik called me yesterday. Dad tried to contact me, he said. Does he want to reunite with the family? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I told him his family was us for 40 years. He chose another. Now he has to live with that choice. My son, my fierce protector. Geneva was less diplomatic. She simply blocked his number. Hattie visits me sometimes. She tells me that Khalil lives alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. He works as a bookkeeper for a small firm that doesn't run background checks. Araya won't allow him to see the children until they are older and can decide for themselves. It's a gray, monotonous existence, honest for the first time in his life. But this story isn't about Khalil. It never really was. It's about Naomi Delaney, about me. About the woman who emerged from the ashes of a false life to build a real one. Yesterday, I found my old diary from the time before Khalil. The girl who wrote those pages dreamed of Paris, of painting in Montmartre, of passion. At 64 years old, I am finally giving that girl what she deserves. Next month I fly to Paris alone with my brushes and a light suitcase. It's not the scholarship I rejected 4 decades ago, but it's my money, my decision, my life. I'll rent a small studio near the Seine. I'll paint until my hands hurt. I'll drink cheap wine with artists who know nothing of my history. While packing, I found the photo of our wedding. Khalil and me, young, radiant, ignorant of the future. I don't rip it up. I don't burn it. I simply place it in a box labeled fiction. Because that's what it was. A beautiful, terrible fiction. My phone rings. It's Sol. That's the literature professor's name. And the name no longer makes me flinch. Ready for our tango class? He asks. Yes. I'm learning tango and Italian and sculpting and wine tasting, something new every day. Every experience an affirmation that life doesn't end with betrayal. That it isn't the end but a new beginning. Give me 10 minutes, I reply. Applying the red lipstick Khalil said was too bold for my age. Everything is bold now. Every day is an act of bravery. Every decision a declaration of independence. Before leaving, I look at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back has wrinkles that tell stories. Gray hair she doesn't hide. Eyes that have seen too much but still shine with hope. She is beautiful, not despite her age and history, but because of them. Hello, Naomi Delaney. I say to my reflection. It's good to finally meet you. And then there's one final twist to this story, one I didn't see coming. This morning, while organizing papers for my trip, I found an envelope that Agent Brooks, the investigator, had left. Open it only when you are ready, he had said. Inside was a letter from my mother, written shortly before she died. A letter Khalil had intercepted and hidden. My dearest Naomi Delaney, it read. If you are reading this, it is because you have finally set yourself free. I always knew the truth about Khalil. I followed him once. I saw the other woman, but you were so fragile after losing that pregnancy, so dependent on him that I feared the truth would destroy you. I was a coward. I am sorry. In compensation, I have left another account, one Khalil does not know about, just for you. The key is where we always hid treasures when you were a child. The old oak tree in my childhood garden. Live, my love. Live truly this time. I rushed to the house, now sold, but whose new owners allowed me to search, and buried among the roots was a metal box. Inside were documents for a Swiss account with enough money to live 100 lives. My mother had given me freedom posthumously, not just financial but emotional. She knew, someone had known, and had chosen to protect me until I was strong enough to protect myself. I didn't need the money anymore, but I would use it for a women's shelter, for art scholarships, for all the Naomi Delaneys trapped in gilded cages. My story ends where it began. With the discovery, a revelation, a truth that changes everything. But this time the truth does not destroy. It liberates. And I, Naomi Delaney Vance, at 64 years old, am finally free. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect. He was in jail waiting for his trial to start. His voice, it was almost unrecognizable. It was broken age, just a shadow of what it used to be. Naomi Delaney, why? Why couldn't you just give me a chance to explain things? To talk about this privately? Explain what, Khalil? Explain how you just happened to stumble into a whole other life for 12 years? How you accidentally got married to another woman? How you unintentionally had 2 more children with her? I shot back. It wasn't like that, Naomi Delaney. Araya got pregnant. I couldn't just abandon her like that. But you could abandon me every single day? For 12 whole years you just left me to rot. I loved you, Naomi Delaney. I always loved you, Naomi Delaney. No, I said, and the clarity in my voice shocked me. You loved the idea of me. You loved the image of the perfect wife in your perfectly organized, compartmentalized life. But you never loved me, the real Naomi Delaney. The Naomi Delaney with her own dreams and desires, her own ambitions. You just turned me into a character in some elaborate fiction you concocted. The children. His voice cracked with emotion. My other kids. What's going to happen to them now? Araya and I have worked out an agreement. They're going to get financial support from the recovered assets. They won't have to suffer financially because of your crimes, Khalil. You and Araya are talking? He sounded surprised. Sometimes the victims of the same criminal find a little bit of comfort in understanding each other, I explained. Naomi Delaney, please, I just want. No, Khalil. You don't have the right to want anything from me, not anymore. You had 40 years of my life. You won't get another second. I hung up the phone. It was the last time I ever heard his voice. It's been 2 years since that anniversary dinner. The one that changed absolutely everything. This morning as I stood in my new condo kitchen, making coffee and looking out at the Atlanta skyline, the sun streaming through the windows that I picked out all by myself, I got a notification on my phone. Khalil had been released for good behavior. And I felt absolutely nothing. No fear, no anger, not even a little bit of curiosity. The man who was my husband for all those years, he was just a stranger now. A character in a story that happened to someone else, to another Naomi Delaney, a woman who doesn't exist anymore. My art exhibition opened last month. It was a series of portraits from an invented life, a life built on lies. Each piece told a part of the story. The blind wife, the awakening woman, the architect of her own freedom. The reviews were incredible, but more importantly, every single brushstroke had been like therapy. Every color was a small victory over the past. At the opening, a man came up to me. He was a widower, a retired literature professor with kind eyes and a genuine laugh. Your work really moves me, he said. There's so much pain, but there's so much hope in it, too. We got coffee afterward and then dinner. There's no rush and no expectations. We're just two people who understand that life can start over again at any age. Malik called me yesterday. Dad tried to get in touch with me, he told me. Does he want to try and reunite with the family? I asked even though I already knew the answer. I told him that we were his family for 40 years. He made his choice to leave. Now he has to live with the consequences. That's my son. Always my fiercest protector. Geneva wasn't quite as diplomatic. She just blocked his number. Hattie comes to visit me sometimes. She told me that Khalil is living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment. He's working as a bookkeeper for some small firm that doesn't do background checks. Araya won't let him see the kids until they're older and can make that decision for themselves. His existence is gray and monotonous, but it's the first time he's been honest in his life. But this isn't really about Khalil. It never really was. This is about Naomi Delaney, about me, about the woman who emerged from the ashes of a false life to build something real. Yesterday I found my old diary from the time before I met Khalil. The girl who wrote in those pages dreamed of Paris, of painting in Montmartre, of passion. At 64, I'm finally giving that girl what she deserves. Next month I'm flying to Paris by myself with my brushes and a small suitcase. It isn't the scholarship I turned down 40 years ago, but it's my money, my decision, my life. I'm going to rent a small studio near the Seine. I'm going to paint until my hands ache. I'll drink cheap wine with artists who don't know a thing about my past. While I was packing, I found our wedding photo. Khalil and me, so young, so radiant, with absolutely no idea what the future held. I don't tear it up. I don't burn it. I just put it in a box labeled fiction. Because that's what it was. A beautiful, terrible fiction. My phone's ringing. It's Sol, the literature professor, the one whose name doesn't make me cringe anymore. Ready for our tango class? He asks. Yes. I'm learning the tango and Italian and sculpting and wine tasting. Something new every day. Every new experience feels like a reminder that life doesn't end with betrayal, that it's not the end, but a new beginning. Give me 10 minutes, I tell him, putting on the red lipstick that Khalil always said was too bold for a woman my age. Now everything is bold. Every day is an act of courage. Every decision is a declaration of independence. Before I leave, I look at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me has wrinkles that tell stories, gray hairs that she doesn't bother to hide, and eyes that have seen way too much, but still sparkle with hope. She is beautiful, not in spite of her age and her history, but because of it. Hello, Naomi Delaney, I say to my reflection. It's good to finally meet you. And then there's one final twist to this story. This morning, while I was organizing my papers for the trip, I found an envelope that Agent Brooks, the investigator, had left me. Only open this when you're ready, he had said. Inside was a letter from my mother, written right before she passed away. A letter that Khalil had intercepted and hidden from me. My dearest Naomi Delaney, it read. If you're reading this, it means that you have finally set yourself free. I always knew the truth about Khalil. I even followed him once. I saw the other woman, but you were so vulnerable after you lost that baby. You were so dependent on him. And I was afraid that the truth would destroy you. I was a coward. I am so sorry. To make up for it, I left behind another account, one that Khalil doesn't know about, just for you. You can find the key where we always used to hide treasures when you were a little girl. Under the old oak tree in the garden of my childhood home. Live, my love. Live a truly authentic life this time. I rushed to the house, which had been sold, but the new owners let me search around. Buried under the roots of that old oak was a metal box. Inside were the documents for a Swiss account with enough money to live 100 lifetimes. My mother had given me freedom posthumously, not just financial freedom but emotional freedom too. She knew. Someone had known. And had chosen to protect me until I was strong enough to protect myself. I don't really need the money anymore, but I'm going to use it to fund a women's shelter, and for art scholarships, for all the other Naomi Delaneys out there trapped in their gilded cages. My story ends where it began, with a discovery, a revelation, a truth that changes absolutely everything. But this time the truth doesn't destroy me. It liberates me. And I, Naomi Delaney Vance, at 64 years old, am finally free. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.